Hi, once again, we can continue from where we ended. Scasola Peter here. Having looked at the factorization method and quadratic equations, we can also look at the method which we call completing the square method. So this one deals with the squares. Now here I'm going to explain as I'm solving the steps that you need to take as you are solving using completing the square method. And you should take note that this method is just the same as factorization method. It is also the same as using the quadratic formula. So the method that you find suitable is the method that you can use in an exam, and this also depend on the type of the question that you have been given. If it cannot be factorized, you can use either completing the square method or the quadratic formula. So this is very common, especially in paper 2. All right, let's quickly look at examples. We are saying solve the following equations, and the examiner will not ask you to say use this formula. No, the formula that you use will be dependent on the question and how conversant you are with that formula. So let's start with question A. We'll start with question A. So we can quickly go to question A. We are saying x squared minus 2x minus 15 is equal to 0. So the three questions that I'm going to solve will show us how to go about using completing the square method. So in the first place, if you have given a quadratic equation, make sure that the constant goes to the other side. Okay, so the constant here that we are talking about is 15, which goes to the other side. So we'll say x squared minus 2x is equal to, when 15, which is a negative 15, goes the other side, it will become positive 15. So in this case, we don't write positive 15, we're just going to write 15. From there, you can now consider the number with the lowest power, or the number that has got x. In this case, we are just talking about the number that is in front of x, and in this case the number that is in front of x is negative 2x. Okay, I mean negative 2. And then we are saying we need to get half of negative 2. So we'll say half of negative 2, we'll say negative 2 divided by 2, which is the same as negative 2 over 2. And this one will give us negative 1. Okay, so this is what we are going to get, and write it as a square. So we add it as a square. We are going to get this value here, negative 1, and add it as a square. So we are adding it as a square. We'll say x squared minus 2x is already there, so you can add it as a square. We'll say plus negative 1 there, plus negative 1 squared is equal to 15. So this is an equation, so what happens on the left hand side should also happen on the right hand side. So on the right hand side, we are saying plus negative 1 again squared. Okay, from there we can proceed by saying this expansion here, this expansion x squared minus 2x plus negative 1 squared. I'll show you where it came from. So I'll write just a part here. When I have so reversing this part, we're going to have x minus 1 squared. We know that x minus 1 squared, let me write it nicely. I'll write it on a separate part here. So we are saying reversing this one, just show you to say it's x minus 1. Maybe I can write it here. X minus 1 squared is the same as x minus 1 and the algebra expansion. We know that x minus 1 squared means x minus 1 should multiply itself 2 times. So we are multiplying x times x there to give us x squared, then x times negative 1 to give us negative x, 1 times x, it will give us, negative 1 times x to give us negative x, then negative 1 times negative 1 to give us the positive 1. Okay, but remember, if we say negative 1 times negative 1, it is just the same as negative 1 squared. Okay, it's just the same as that. So where there is positive 1 there, so that we don't bring confusion, we can say plus a negative 1 squared. If we simplify this one, we'll say it's x squared negative x minus x, it will just give us negative 2x, then plus a negative 1 squared. So since we are talking about squares, we can see that this part and that one there, they are the same. So what we are going to do is, in place of x squared minus 2x, we're going to replace x minus 1 squared. Okay, we're going to replace that. So I can rub some of the things because I have a lot of things here. Rub this. So we are just saying where there is x squared minus 2x plus negative 1, we just replace it by x minus 1 squared. We have taken the square there. Then this side, on the other side, we have 15 negative 1 times negative 1. So here for negative 1 squared, I said it's the same as negative 1 times negative 1, which will give us a positive 1, because negative times negative is 1 is positive. 1 times 1 is 1. So we'll say this negative positive times a positive that we are going to get from there to just be plus 1. Then we have x minus 1 squared is equal to 16. From there we can take the square roots both sides. Remember, the square root of a number is a positive or a negative. Then this squared and the square root cancels out, so we have x minus 1 is equal to positive or negative. The square root of 16 is 4. We can proceed from there. We are saying there are two cases here. Remember, quadratic equations, just like we did in the first part, has got two values. So here we are saying either x minus 1 should be equal to positive 4, or x minus 1 can also be equal to negative 4. Where are these coming from? It's because the first part we have used a positive here for this one, in the other part we have used a negative, which is a negative there. So we are going to proceed by saying this one will give us x is equal to 4 when 1 goes the other side to be 4 plus 1. Here it was a minus. Then we can complete this by saying x is equal to 5. So that's one value of x. The other one to be x is equal to negative 4. 1 goes the other side. Here it's negative. It will become positive 1. Then we'll say x is equal to negative 4 plus 1 will just give us negative 3. And that will be the answer. We can proceed and go to question 2. For question 2, we are saying 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 is equal to 0. That's question B. Question B, 2x squared plus 7x plus 3 is equal to 0. Okay, so this question is a bit different from the previous one, in the sense that the coefficient of x squared is a 2 here. Okay, so we are going to take the same steps. We'll say first of all we take 3 the other side, and 3 here is positive. If it goes the other side to the other side, it will become negative. So we are saying 2x squared plus 7x will be equal to negative 3. It has been taken to the other side. From there, the coefficient of x squared here should always be a 1. So what are we going to do? We are going to divide. We'll divide throughout by 2. Alright, so we are dividing by 2 here, by 2 there, and by 2 there. Okay, from there we're going to see that 2 and 2 cancels out. Or 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 multiplied by x squared is x squared, plus here we are going to have 7 over 2. X is equal to negative 3 over 2. Alright, from here we should now take half of the coefficient of x. So half of 7 over 2, so we are writing it here, 7 over 2 divided by 2. We know that 2 is over 1. So when we don't divide fractions, but instead we multiply fractions. So we are going to multiply, but this other part will become a reciprocal, and for a reciprocal will mean they will interchange. 1 will become the numerator and 2 comes down here as the denominator. So we are going to have 7 over 2. Immediately we change the sign. Even this one changes, it becomes 1 over 2. So when multiplying fractions, we multiply numerator by numerator and denominator by denominator. So we say 7 times 1 is 7, 2 times 2 is 4. So you see that half of 7 over 2 is just 7 over 4. So we'll take that one as a square. Alright, so we are going to write to say x squared plus 7 over 2x plus 7 over 4. This one we are squaring it. Squared is equal to negative 3 over 2 plus 7 over 4 squared. So what happens on the left hand side should also happen on the right hand side for the equation. So we are saying squared there, and then again, okay. From there we are saying we are going to reverse this part in terms of the square. So the whole lot of that part, will reverse it in terms of the square. So I'm just going to write it down here as a rough work. Now when you are solving in an exam, you don't need to show the examiner that this one is reversed. I'm explaining this because you need to know where this one is coming from, the whole lot of this part. So in an exam, you just try to say x, then you get the squared, it's 7 over 4, because you've seen x is squared and 7 over 4 is squared, so you put them in brackets and square them. But for the sake of you knowing, I'm saying this, so roughly here, this x plus 7 over 4 squared is the same as x plus 7 over 4 multiplies itself twice, x plus 7 over 4. Okay, because we are saying squared. So if we multiply x times x there, it will be x squared. X times 7 over 4, it will be plus 7 over 4. Then we can say 7 plus 7 over 4 x, then 7 over 4 times x, it will be plus 7 over 4 x, then 7 over 4 times 7 over 4, we'll just write it plus 7 over 4 squared, as I wrote in the first question. Then we'll say this will be equal to x squared. When we add 7 over 4 plus 7 over 4, it will just give us 14 over 4 x, because we are saying 7 over 4 plus 7 over 4. The lowest common denominator, the lowest common multiple is just 4. So we'll just add 7 plus 7 to give us 14. Then here the common denominator is 4. So we are adding plus 7 over 4 squared. From there, we are saying 2 there is 2, 2 there is 7. So we're going to have x squared plus 7 over 2x plus 7 over 4 squared. So when you look at this part and this part, they are the same. Okay, it's bringing us to that. But we are saying if there is an equal sign there, we are saying this part and that part, they are the same. Okay, so in place of x squared minus plus 7 over 2x plus 7 over 4 squared, we'll replace by x plus 7 over 4 squared. Okay, so I can rub some things here. The work is too much. Okay, this one rub. So as I mentioned, I was just trying to show you where this x plus 7 over 4 squared is coming from. In an exam, you don't need to do that. Then this side, we have negative 3 over 2, then plus 7 over 4 squared is 7 over 4 times 7 over 4. So we are saying 7 over 4 squared is the same as 7 over 4 times 7 over 4. So we are multiplying 7 times 7 will give us 49. 4 times 4 will give us 16. So here we'll write, okay, so in an exam we don't need this one. We'll write 49 over 16. From there we can continue by saying x plus 7 over 4. This one is squared. We are working with what is on the right hand side. Here we can look for the lowest common multiple of 2 and 16. It will just be 16. 2 into 16 is 8. 8 times 3 is negative 24, because there is a negative there. 8 times negative 3. Then plus 16 into 16 is 1. 1 times 49. We are saying this 16 into that 16 is 1. 1 times 49 will just give us 49. Alright, we can proceed by saying we have x plus 7 over 4 squared is equal to, so we have this is the same as 49 minus 24. Negative 24 plus 49 will just give us 25 over the denominator 16. From there you can take the square roots. Even this side, the square root, positive or negative. So we're going to have x plus 7 over 4 as the square root of x plus 7 over 4 squared. We see that the squared and the square root cancels out. Then here we are saying is equal to positive or negative. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 16 is 4. Okay, from there we can continue by saying we have two cases here. The first one, either x plus 7 over 4 will be equal to positive 5 over 4, or the other one is x plus 7 over 4 will be equal to negative 5 over 4. Okay, first of all we solve the first part, this part here. So we are saying x is equal to 5 over 4. This 7 over 4 goes the other side, it will be minus 7 over 4. So our x here will just be, so the lowest common multiple, if the denominators are the same, just add or subtract the numerators. So we'll say 5 minus 7 to give us negative 2 over the denominator there is just a 4, and we'll say x is just equal to negative 2 into 2 is 1, 2 into 4 is 2, so a negative half. Then this other solution, we are saying x is equal to negative 5 over 4, positive 5 over 4, positive 7 over 4 goes the other side, it will be minus 7 over 4. Then we're going to have x is equal to negative 5 minus 7 to give us negative 12. Then for the common denominator there, the common one is 4, so we say negative 12 divided by 4 will just give us negative 3, and that will be our answer. We can now proceed by looking at example 3. So example 3 was saying p squared minus p is equal to 4 from ECZ 2019. Example 3. So we are saying example C, we have p squared minus p is equal to 4. Alright, so the simplest method that we can use on this one is completing the square method. But there is no restriction, you can even use other methods such as the quadratic formula, which we'll look at in the next session. So in this one already the constant has been taken to the other side. We don't need to do that, it has been done for us. So all we need to do is to find half of the coefficient of p. So the coefficient or the number in front of p is a 1, which we have not written there. So we'll say this one has got a sign negative, so it's negative 1 divided by 2. We see that negative 1 divided by 2 is just negative 1 over 2. So that's half of negative 1 there. So we are going to write to say so this part also is important, but you don't need to write it in an exam. So p squared minus p, we are adding a negative 1 squared this side, I mean negative half squared, so add negative half this side plus negative half squared is equal to 4 plus negative half squared. I can rub this part a bit. 4 plus negative half squared even this side. Okay, so this way can just bring problems. Alright, we can continue by saying p squared minus p plus negative half squared. We can deal with what is on the other side. 4 plus negative half squared simply means negative half times negative half. Okay, so negative half times negative half, we are saying negative times negative is positive. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4. So negative half squared will just give us a positive 1 over 4. Positive 1 over 4 times a positive there, whatever will come out from there will be a positive times positive to give us a positive. We can proceed. We proceed by now saying we have p squared minus p plus a negative half squared is equal to, here 4 is over 1, so we are adding, it's just 4 over 1 plus 1 over 4. We will look for the lowest common multiple of 1 and 4. In this case it's a 4. 1 into 4 is 4. 4, this 4 multiplies the numerator 4 to give us 16. We are going to have 16 plus 4 into 4, it's 1. 1 times 1 will give us 1. There we can proceed by saying p squared minus p plus a negative half in brackets squared is equal to 16 plus 1 will give us 17 over 4. Okay, from there now, this is what we are saying. this part can be reversed, and if it is reversed, it will be p minus half. You just get the ones that have a squared, so minus half, and then we say squared. You can try to prove this one. We are saying p minus half squared is the same as p minus half times p minus half. Okay, and if we multiply these, we see that p times p will give us p squared. P times negative half, it's negative half p. Negative half times p, it's negative half p. Then negative half times negative half, we'll say it's plus negative half. It's negative half squared. And then if we simplify, we'll have p squared minus half p minus half p. Negative half p minus half p just give us negative p. Okay, when you say minus half, the common denominator there is 2. 2 into 2 is 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. 2 into 2 is 1. 1 times negative 1 is negative 1, to give us negative 2 over 2, which when we divide will just give us negative 1. And in this case we have a negative, we have a p there, so write this one as negative 1p, though we don't write as negative 1p, we just write the variable there. Okay, so that's how come we are having negative p there. Then plus in brackets negative half squared. So this part and this one, they are the same. And when we are saying those two parts are the same, we can see that this part here and that one are the same. So where there is this part, we can replace by p minus half squared. Okay, so we can wrap this part. I was just trying to show you where that one is coming from, in case you have forgotten. So we can proceed. We can say is equal to is equal to 17 over 4. So taking the square roots now, even this side, positive or negative, we are going to have the squared and the square root cancels out. P minus half will just be equal to positive or negative the square root of 17 over 4. Okay, the square root of 17 over 4. From there we can find the square root of 17 over 4 as follows. We can bring our calculator. Okay, we say on, we are saying alright, so we are saying we find the square root of 17 over 4, which will be positive or negative. This side we can write p minus half is equal to positive or negative, whatever we are going to get this side. We can bring our calculator. We can say first of all we can say 17 divided by 4 will give us 4.25. Then we can find the square root of the answer, and this one will give us 2.06155. So 2.06155, 2.06155, 2813, 2813. Okay, from there we can say we are taking P the other side, but taking it will be either P minus half is equal to 2.06155, or P minus half will be equal to minus 2.06155. So you can even go up to 4 decimal places even if you have not written the whole lot of the number, but it is advisable to write the whole lot of the number there. So we can write to say P would be equal to 2.06155, half goes the other side, it will be plus a half. Okay, from there we can say P is equal to can say we bring our calculator, it's paper 2, remember. You can say this number plus, so half is just the same as 0.5. So plus 0.5, it will just be 2.51552813. So it will be 2.5 6155281 to 2 decimal places, it will just be 2.56. This will be the value of P this side. On the other side again, we'll equally do the same. We'll say P is equal to negative 2.06155. It goes the other side, minus half goes there, it will be plus a half. So our P will just be equal to, we can bring the calculator, we are saying negative, okay, it's a negative 2.06155. Can use the whole lot of the number 1552813 plus half, I said, is just the same as 0.5. So we are adding a 0.5 there to give us negative 1.561552813. So it will be negative 1.561552813, and to 2 decimal places it will just be P is equal to negative 1.56, and this one will be the other answer for P. So if you are to try, you use the quadratic formula. After you learn the quadratic formula, you can try to use the quadratic formula on this question. You will see that the values of P are just going to come out the same as the ones that we found in this session when you do it correctly. Thank you very much.